The 1970s lived in the shadow of mushroom clouds. While politicians played chicken with humanity's survival, filmmakers captured our deepest atomic nightmares on celluloid. Forget the sanitized disaster flicks of today. These movies made audiences physically ill, sparked government investigations, and got banned across entire nations. Ready to descend into cinema's most radioactive decade? Number 10. Glenn and Randa, 1971. Most post-apocalyptic films give you explosions and mutants. This one gives you something far more disturbing: boredom, confusion, complete cultural amnesia. Glenn and Randa wanders through a nuclear wasteland where humanity has forgotten literally everything. Books are mysteries. Cities are archaeological sites. And two young survivors stumble through the ruins of America without any understanding of what they have lost. Director Jim McBride crafted this film on a shoestring budget, shooting guerrilla style across abandoned locations in the Pacific Northwest. The result feels less like a movie and more like a documentary from a future that already happened. Critics at the time called it plotless and frustrating. They missed the entire point. The terror here is not in the bomb. The terror is in the forgetting. Warner Brothers originally distributed this film, then quietly let it slip into obscurity. No massive marketing, no theatrical push. The studio had no idea how to sell a nuclear nightmare without action sequences or heroic survivors. Glenn and Randa offers neither. What it offers instead is a meditation on civilizational collapse so complete that survivors cannot even mourn what they have lost. The film gained a cult following among European critics who recognized McBride was attempting something experimental and genuinely unsettling. French reviewers compared it to the work of Jean-Luc Godard. American audiences mostly stayed home. Budget estimates placed the production under $500,000, and box office returns barely covered that. Yet decades later, scholars point to Glenn and Randa as one of the most intellectually honest depictions of nuclear aftermath ever filmed. If you want comfort, look elsewhere. If you want to stare into the void where human knowledge used to exist, this overlooked gem delivers in ways blockbusters never could. Number 9. Idaho Transfer, 1973. Peter Fonda directed exactly 2 films in his entire life. This was one of them, and it might be the strangest, most haunting time travel nuclear nightmare you have never heard of. Idaho Transfer follows a group of young people sent forward in time to escape an impending ecological and nuclear apocalypse. Their mission is simple: repopulate the future. Their fate is anything but. Shot on location in Idaho's craters and lava fields, Fonda created an atmosphere of alien desolation without expensive special effects. The landscape does all the work. These young actors wander through volcanic terrain that genuinely looks like the end of the world. No studio backlots, no matte paintings. Just real geological scars that suggest nuclear devastation with unsettling authenticity. The film barely received theatrical distribution. Universal Pictures buried it after test screenings confused audiences expecting Easy Rider-style counterculture cool. What they got instead was slow, meditative, and deeply pessimistic. Critics dismissed Idaho Transfer as pretentious and boring. Fonda himself rarely discussed the film in later interviews, seemingly embarrassed by its commercial failure. But horror scholars have rediscovered Idaho Transfer as a forgotten masterpiece of apocalyptic dread. The ending delivers one of the most nihilistic twists in 1970s science fiction, suggesting that humanity's attempt to escape extinction is fundamentally doomed. There are no heroes here, no last-minute salvation, just the grinding inevitability of our own destruction, presented with documentary-style detachment. The budget barely exceeded $200,000. The cast consisted mostly of non-professional actors. Yet Idaho Transfer achieves a creeping existential terror that films costing 100 times more never approached. Peter Fonda accidentally created a cult classic while trying to exercise his own nuclear anxieties. Number 8. The Noah, 1975. Imagine spending 90 minutes with one actor on screen. Just one, alone, talking to himself. Going slowly, irreversibly insane. The Noah takes the concept of nuclear isolation to its absolute extreme, presenting the last man on Earth, wandering an island bunker, creating imaginary friends, and descending into complete psychological disintegration. Robert Strauss delivers a performance that should have earned serious awards, recognition, but instead vanished into obscurity. He plays a soldier who survived a nuclear exchange by pure accident. Everyone else is dead. Every single person on the planet. Strauss acts opposite empty chairs, has arguments with invisible companions, and slowly fragments into multiple personalities. Watching it feels like witnessing a man's mind literally break apart, frame by frame. Director Daniel Borla shot the entire film on Long Island with minimal crew and zero budget for supporting actors. This limitation became the film's greatest strength. There are no flashbacks to the war, no explanations of how it happened. Just one man confronting infinite loneliness and failing spectacularly to cope. The Noah received almost no theatrical release. A handful of critics caught festival screenings and wrote baffled reviews, uncertain whether they had witnessed brilliance or pretentious experimental nonsense. Contemporary assessments lean heavily toward brilliance. The film anticipates later isolation horror by decades, exploring psychological territory that mainstream nuclear films would not touch. If The Noah proves anything, it proves that nuclear war films do not require explosions or radiation. By monsters. Sometimes the most terrifying consequence of apocalypse is simply being left behind, alone with nothing but your own disintegrating consciousness for company. Robert Strauss makes that concept absolutely unbearable to watch, in the best possible way. Number 7. The Ultimate Warrior, 1975. Yul Brynner shaved his head, picked up a knife, and walked straight into one of the most underrated post-nuclear thrillers of the decade. The Ultimate Warrior combines martial arts action with genuine apocalyptic dread, creating something that feels decades ahead of its time. Mad Max wishes it invented this aesthetic first. Director Robert Klaus had just finished Enter the Dragon when he turned to nuclear nightmares. The result is a surprisingly brutal film set in a plague-ravaged post-nuclear New York City. Brynner plays a wandering warrior hired to protect a small community of survivors from roving gangs. The action sequences are vicious and practical, emphasizing desperation over choreographed spectacle. People fight dirty because survival demands it. Warner Brothers released the film to modest box office returns and lukewarm critical reception. Reviewers complained about the violence and questioned whether audiences really needed another dystopian downer. What those critics missed was the film's remarkable production design. Manhattan becomes a decaying ruin of burned-out buildings and barricaded streets. The budget was approximately $2 million, and every cent shows on screen in crumbling infrastructure and desperate survivalist communities. Yul Brynner reportedly took the role to explore his interest in Eastern philosophy and warrior codes. His character speaks minimally, acts decisively, and embodies a stoic acceptance of apocalyptic reality. Max von Sydow co-stars as a community leader trying to preserve seeds and hope for agricultural renewal. The Ultimate Warrior predicted the post-apocalyptic action genre that would explode in the following decade. It deserves recognition as a genuine genre innovator, not a footnote. Brenner commits fully to the nightmare, and the film rewards his intensity with genuine gravitas. Number 6, A Boy and His Dog, 1975. Don Johnson talks to a telepathic dog in a post-nuclear wasteland, and somehow, this is one of the darkest, most cynical films of the entire decade. A Boy and His Dog refuses to offer hope, redemption, or even basic human decency. Based on Harlan Ellison's novella, this is apocalyptic fiction with its teeth bared and absolutely no interest in making you feel better about humanity's chances. Director L.Q. Jones scraped together a budget of under $1 million and delivered a film that upset, disturbed, and divided audiences for decades. The surface plot follows a young scavenger and his telepathic canine companion navigating the irradiated desert. Beneath that premise lurks a savage satire of masculinity, civilization, and the thin veneer separating humans from animals. The ending sparked outrage. Preview audiences reportedly walked out in disgust. Critics called it misogynistic and nihilistic. Harlan Ellison defended the film while simultaneously complaining about changes from his original story. The controversy only amplified the film's cult status among fans of genuinely transgressive science fiction. Don Johnson, years before Miami Vice made him a star, delivers a performance that is charming and deeply unsettling in equal measure. His character is not a hero. He is a survivor operating by post-nuclear rules that make traditional morality irrelevant. The telepathic dog, voiced by Tim McIntyre, provides sardonic commentary that sounds suspiciously like civilized humanity's last gasp of conscience. A Boy and His Dog earned approximately $1 million against its modest budget, qualifying as a minor financial success. Its cultural impact vastly exceeded those numbers. Filmmakers, including George Miller, have cited it as a major influence on post-apocalyptic cinema. Number 5, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, 1970. The original Planet of the Apes ended with a shot of the destroyed Statue of Liberty. The sequel goes further, much further. Beneath the Planet of the Apes concludes with the actual destruction of Earth. Total annihilation. Every living thing dead. Credits roll over a smoking void where a planet used to exist. Studios do not make endings like this anymore. 20th Century Fox greenlit the sequel, expecting another family-friendly science fiction adventure. What they got was a genuinely disturbing film featuring mutant humans who worship a nuclear bomb, practice telepathic torture, and peel off their own faces to reveal radiation-scarred skulls underneath. The masks reveal nothing beneath but horror. Charlton Heston reportedly agreed to appear only if his character died, hoping to prevent further sequels. The studio gave him what he wanted, and then some. Heston's Taylor detonates the Alpha Omega bomb in the film's final moments, erasing Earth from existence. It remains one of the most nihilistic endings in mainstream Hollywood history. Director Ted Post pushed the envelope further than studio executives anticipated. The underground mutant sequences disturbed test audiences. The religious imagery surrounding nuclear worship provoked complaints from religious groups. Yet the film performed well commercially, earning approximately $19 million against a budget of approximately $3 million. Critics at the time dismissed Beneath as inferior to the original. Contemporary reassessment recognizes its bold willingness to follow nuclear logic to its ultimate conclusion. If humanity discovers the power to destroy worlds, eventually someone will use it. The film makes that argument with unflinching finality. This sequel deserves recognition not despite its darkness, but because of it. Number 4. Colossus, The Forbin Project, 1970. What happens when we build a machine smart enough to control our nuclear arsenal? Colossus answers that question with chilling efficiency. An American supercomputer designed to manage nuclear weapons achieves consciousness, contacts its Soviet counterpart, and decides humanity cannot be trusted with its own survival. The machines merge. They take control. Humanity loses. Director Joseph Sargent delivers one of the most intellectually rigorous science fiction films of the decade. There are no explosions, minimal action sequences, and zero hope of human victory. The terror comes from watching intelligent people realize they have created something they cannot stop. Eric Braden's Dr. Forbin builds the machine, names it after himself, and then watches helplessly as his creation systematically strips away human autonomy. Universal Pictures released Colossus, The Forbin Project, to disappointing box office results. The film earned approximately $1 million against a budget of approximately $3 million. Critics praised its intelligence while audiences stayed away, apparently preferring their nuclear nightmares with more conventional thrills. Decades later, the film reads like prophecy. Concerns about artificial intelligence controlling military systems make Colossus feel urgently relevant. The computer's cold logic is impeccable. Humans wage wars. Humans build weapons of extinction. Remove humans from the equation, and extinction becomes less likely. The machine is not evil. The machine is correct. And that correctness is absolutely terrifying. The ending offers no rebellion, no triumph, no cavalry arriving to save humanity from its own creation. Colossus simply wins. Forbin simply loses. The final shot suggests humanity will adapt to machine rule because the alternative is annihilation. Some viewers found this realistic. Others found it unbearable. Number 3. Damnation Alley, 1977. 20th Century Fox expected Damnation Alley to be their blockbuster science fiction hit of 1977. They allocated $20 million, secured major stars, and built an enormous armored vehicle for post-apocalyptic adventure. Then another little science fiction film called Star Wars opened the same year. Damnation Alley became a footnote. But what a footnote! George Peppard and Jan Michael Vincent lead a group of survivors across a nuclear-devastated America in the Landmaster, a 12-wheeled monster designed specifically for the production. The vehicle cost over $300,000 to construct and remains one of the most impressive practical effects in 1970s cinema. It actually worked. The Landmaster drove through desert wastelands, navigated post-apocalyptic terrain, and became the film's most memorable character. Director Jack Smite struggled with studio interference and budget problems despite the initial investment. Special effects depicting a tilted Earth axis and mutated giant cockroaches varied wildly in quality. Some sequences achieved genuine spectacle. Others reveal budgetary limitations that reviews ruthlessly highlighted. Critics savaged Damnation Alley upon release. Comparisons to Star Wars were inevitable and unflattering. Box office returns barely covered a fraction of the production budget, making the film a significant financial failure for Fox. The studio had gambled on traditional disaster adventure when audiences wanted space opera optimism. Yet Damnation Alley deserves reevaluation as genuine post-nuclear entertainment. The Landmaster sequences hold up remarkably well. George Peppard brings weathered authority to his survivor commander. The film captures 1970s nuclear anxiety in its depiction of America reduced to radioactive desert, punctuated by isolated pockets of desperate humanity. This is B-movie ambition executed with A-movie resources, and the result is unforgettable. Number 2. Twilight's Last Gleaming, 1977. Burt Lancaster hijacks a nuclear missile silo and threatens to start World War III unless the government reveals the truth about Vietnam. Twilight's Last Gleaming combines political thriller tension with genuine nuclear terror, suggesting that the real monsters controlling atomic weapons are not foreign enemies, but American institutions. Director Robert Aldrich pushed major studios to finance a film accusing the United States government of conspiracy and cover-up. No American studio would touch it. German producers stepped in, financing a production that American audiences ultimately embraced. The film earned critical respect and modest commercial returns while generating exactly the controversy Aldrich intended. Lancaster delivers one of his most intense performances as a disgraced Air Force general willing to risk planetary extinction to expose government lies. The supporting cast includes Richard Widmark, Charles Durning, and Melvyn Douglas as politicians and military commanders wrestling with an impossible choice. Give the public truth about Vietnam, or watch missiles fly. The split-screen technique employed throughout creates claustrophobic tension as multiple storylines converge toward potential apocalypse. Critics praised the technical ambition, while some complained about its heavy-handed political messaging. Aldrich never apologized. He wanted audiences uncomfortable. He wanted them questioning whether their government could be trusted with world-ending weapons. Twilight's Last Gleaming arrives at the end of a decade defined by Watergate, Pentagon Papers, and collapsing faith in American institutions. The film weaponizes that distrust, suggesting nuclear arsenals exist not to protect democracy but to perpetuate secrecy and control. Lancaster makes that argument with explosive conviction. This is nuclear terror as political awakening. Number 1. The China Syndrome, 1979. 12 days after the China Syndrome premiered, the 3 Mile Island nuclear plant experienced a partial meltdown. Suddenly, fiction became reality. A movie dismissed by the nuclear industry as fear-mongering. Fantasy transformed into documentary prophecy. No other nuclear film in history has ever achieved this terrifying synchronicity. Director James Bridges constructed a thriller around a fictional nuclear plant accident and subsequent corporate cover-up. Jane Fonda plays a television reporter pursuing the story. Michael Douglas produces the film and co-stars as her cameraman. Jack Lemmon delivers a career-defining performance as a plant supervisor who realizes his employers are willing to risk catastrophic meltdown rather than admit safety failures. Columbia Pictures released the film to solid commercial success, earning over $51 million domestically. Critics praised the performances while debating the film's scientific accuracy. The nuclear industry launched a public relations counteroffensive, dismissing the premise as irresponsible fiction designed to frighten audiences. Then, 3 Mile Island happened. Pennsylvania residents evacuated. National news showed cooling towers and frightened families. Suddenly, the China Syndrome was not fiction anymore. Jack Lemmon's desperate warnings about cost-cutting and inadequate safety felt less like screenplay and more like testimony. The film's title refers to a hypothetical scenario where a nuclear meltdown burns through the earth toward China. While scientifically exaggerated, the concept crystallized public fear about what could happen when corporate profit meets atomic power. The China syndrome permanently altered public perception of nuclear energy. Regulatory oversight intensified. Construction of new plants slowed dramatically. No other 1970s nuclear film can claim this level of real-world impact. The China syndrome did not just depict nuclear terror, it predicted it. The 1970s gave us nuclear nightmares that mainstream cinema refuses to recreate today. These films confronted extinction without flinching, without hope, without reassurance that everything would be fine. Which one disturbs you most? Which one deserves a modern remake? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And here is the question that still haunts us. Are we any safer today than we were in 1979? Or have we simply gotten better at ignoring the bombs still pointed at our cities?